going to Kansas City. If I could, I could, I could, I could. I'm going to Kansas.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. My name is Emmanuel Cleaver III.
And I'm Emil Cleaver.
Check us out most places you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. Lots have been going on.
Before we start that, we want to say this is our 50th show.
Number 50.
Big 5-0. So we've been putting in some work. So it's almost an anniversary. When we get to 100, we need to do something real big.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. A lot's happened. And a lot's happened here in Kansas City all over, but the big news that's made national, international news that happened here in Kansas City, Ralph Yarl, young man goes to a house that he thinks where his siblings are, and the owner of the house, a white supremacist, racist KKK member.
According to his grandson.
Yeah. So, I mean, his grandson told on him. So he shoots Ralph Yarl. He opens the
Ralph
door.
Yarl just goes to the door,
Yeah.
picking up his kid, picking up his two younger brothers.
He had the wrong house. That was the problem.
So he
and it
knocked
was
on the door, rang the doorbell or whatever, and this man just shoots through the door.
well, no. He opens the door. He shoots through the screen door.
Oh, okay.
Not that that makes any difference, but you know what?
And what did he say?
He said, "Get off my." I don't know. What do you mean? What did he say?
What did the man say before he shot?
I don't know that I heard him say anything.
Yeah, he didn't. That's the point. He didn't say anything. He just shot him. He didn't say, "Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you in my yard? You need to leave before I shoot." He just opened the door. The screen door was still shut, and he saw a black man who he said looked taller than him. He said, he thought it was a man. He was scared. He thought the guy looked at least 6'1", is what he said, and so he shot. He was afraid of his life. He had been listening to Fox News, watching Fox News, and Fox News said that black boy is the enemy. So he shot. Then I believe after he shot the first time, he opened the screen door and shot him again. Right?
He did shoot him twice. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, he obviously. The man has some problems. The guns were legal, but in Missouri,
The man has
anybody,
problems.
yeah, he does. But in Missouri, anybody can get a gun. I mean, any human. You can come off a armed bank robbery and then go buy a gun. Is how laxed the laws here on Missouri. But that's not the only time. So Kaylin Gillis, who was a cheerleader, did the same. I mean, similar. She pulled in the driveway to turn around, which I've done I don't know how many times.
A lot of people have done that.
Yeah. And I guess the person that owned the house didn't like that and just started shooting and killed her.
Yeah, killed her. I don't know. What are you doing?
Plug it in, man. You need me to you can't communicate? Say something.
No, I don't.
Say something, man.
I didn't know if you were having a heart attack or what. I mean, you're just making all types of odd movements.
Well, FYI, in the future, people having heart attacks don't typically grab their plug and
They
plug
might.
it in.
They don't know what they're doing.
No, they don't.
Anyway, so yeah, she pulled into the wrong driveway, and a trigger-happy proud American citizen felt it was his duty to shoot. So that's the world we live in.
But a lot of this goes to the
live in.
stand your ground laws, which is crazy. That's what they're going to try to do with the guy who shot Yarl.
Well, I don't see how they can do that. I mean,
I'm
because
telling
he didn't
you
have a
what they are
gun.
going to. It worked against Trayvon Martin. He didn't have a gun.
That was a little different. I mean, they're not saying that Zimmer, whatever his name is, was right. But they were in a fight. This guy, this kid, was just standing at the door.
Right, but I'm
And
telling
the thing
you.
is, on our last episode, we shot that at Tyrone Yarbrough's house, and so on my way there, I got the address confused, and I went to the wrong house. I actually rang the doorbell. They were like, "Who are you? What do you want?" And I, told them, who I was looking for, and they said the wrong house. Fortunately, they didn't, shoot and kill me or shoot just shoot at me. But that's just how
Yeah, man, I
easy
would've-
something like that can happen.
Because you look like a bad black man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway. So yeah.
But no, I'm
Make
telling
lightly
you,
of it.
his attorney is going to try the stand your ground law. That's the only defense, that he's protecting his home, and it's 10 o'clock at night. He sees this terrifying, menacing black man that he says, really just a boy, and in his mind, he's protecting his home. I'm hoping and praying that, of course, that defense won't work. I think the whole stand your ground law needs to be reevaluated because, I mean, all you're telling his people is, hey, don't avoid conflict. If you have a gun, just end the conflict. That's basically what the law is saying.
Yeah, I mean, in certain states, like this state, Texas, Florida.
There are plenty of states. It's not just those three. But it's crazy. And, it's turned into the Wild Wild West. So here in Missouri, Jefferson City, it's the capital, they voted last week and they passed a law saying that people can carry guns in houses of worship and on public buses. I mean, think about that. Now, why in the world would elected officials need to be voting about what people can take into a house of worship, to a synagogue, mosque, or church? Makes no sense, except they want control over everything.
Yeah,
Or maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's stupid. Keep your laws out of my business.
Yeah, that we know what state we live in. We've always lived here, and so I mean we know how it is. This is not shouldn't be a surprise to anyone in Missouri, outside of Kansas City, St. Louis.
Middle of the state, you got to give Jeff City and Columbia.
Yeah, even though this was voted in.
Well, but they come from everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So, but yeah, Jeff City's one of the Jeff City and Columbia, the middle of the state. Seems progressive. So once you get outside of the middle of the state, St. Louis and Kansas City,
Gets rough.
it's rough out here in Missouri. Misery is what it's really known as. But I heard one of the things that always comes up. People, of course, protested when the guy who shot Ralph Yarl wasn't arrested. Well, he was arrested, but then he was released. They couldn't hold him until they had enough evidence for the prosecutor to actually indict him. But a lot of people I've heard talk about, well, why do black people only get upset if it's a white person
that's been brought up a
that
lot.
kills a black person, when there seems to be a lot of violence against black people where no white people are involved? How come you all don't protest and march that? That's what I'm saying to you, man. What do you, how come you all don't fight for that?
That's
All right, that's what I thought. You don't have anything to say.
do I get to talk or
Well, you're not. You're stumbling.
Now, I mean, times people just don't just say the first thing that pop in their head. Seeing people like me who are thinkers, think it out. And I think that's a fair question. I don't think you can just ask that question. And see, this is what they don't want to hear, about those difference. People kill who they live around. Black people kill black people because that's usually who they live around. White people kill white people, and that's usually who they live around. The number of murders in the inner city is deeper than just gun control. That's a little deeper. That has to do with joblessness, lack of education,
Poverty,
poverty,
food deserts.
That's a result of a lot of different things, as opposed to someone knocking on somebody's door and just getting shot and killed.
Well, then you can always come back and say, okay, just because you have poor education doesn't mean you have to kill each other. Because because you're hungry doesn't mean.
Well, see, I mean that's. I don't see how a white person can say that. Any person can say that and not laugh. Just because you're hungry, I don't understand why you would kill someone. Well, yes, if you're ever that hungry, I'm not saying that is right, but yeah, you're hungry enough, you're gonna kill. You're gonna do anything you take. You'll do anything.
Well, not yeah.
Yeah, you
possibly,
will.
Not everyone.
Not everyone. But a
I
lot
think
of people.
it's more than just hunger. It's just, so when you have lack of education, you have poverty, you're living in a food desert, the school system is not as strong. I mean, to encapsulate all that, you say it's hopelessness.
Yeah.
So when people are hopeless, feel hopeless, that there is no way out. Who was it? Cool G Rap said years ago, and I think and Notorious Big said something similar, that, you know, to get out of the neighborhood, what you need a wicked jump shot, or you're selling drugs. I mean, so when you have that kind of poverty and lack of education, some folk think there is no way to get out of this except a life of crime.
Yeah.
And so that's the argument.
Not even to mention the mental illness. We won't even mention the mental illness because of the years of oppression and systemic racism that, you know, those same people will never acknowledge. I was listening to D.L. Hughley the other day, and he made an interesting point that somebody gave him a book. It was from 1838 or somewhere around there. And he said he started looking through this book, and he was saying, when this book came out, I would be killed for reading this book. You know, or to know what is even in this book. I could be killed to even know what's in this book. And now you switch it around today. We have a people who are trying to prevent us from even knowing that. You understand what I'm saying? So there are people today, the governor in Florida is trying to prevent people from even knowing that at a time you and I would be killed for knowing what's in a book. You know, it's kind of ironic how it's all come around, where they didn't want us to learn, you know, and now they don't want us to know that they didn't want us to learn. That's the world we live in. But I say that to say that all that comes around to violence in the black community. When they want to turn that around, why don't we get upset? Yeah, we do get upset. We get upset. And we're going to be talking about that today. Rappers who talk about that in their songs and music and how it's always been there. But we get upset. But, you know, the reason we get more upset about white, I mean, the reason I guess that we don't fight for, this is just my opinion, we don't fight or make as much noise when there's black on black crime is because we know that there are hundreds of things that need to take place before that will ever stop. I mean, we can be in the streets marching and singing and doing all that, but until there's jobs in that community, until there's education in that community, until there's help with mental illness in that community, until there's food in that community.
Opportunity.
I mean,
that's the word, opportunity.
Crime is going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, so the circumstances to change the violence that we see in inner cities around the country, that requires a lot more systemic change. But when Ralph Yarl is shot, I mean, it's a matter of people making noise so that the prosecutor actually brings charges.
Charges the first day. The guy doesn't get to go home and, you know, I don't know what redneck racists eat, but, you know, he went home and ate his possum soup or whatever they eat. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they didn't have enough evidence to hold him.
They didn't have enough evidence, man. Ralph was laying on the ground bleeding. That he's in the hospital,
right?
Fighting for his life. That's enough evidence.
Yeah. I'm gonna say the police's perspective, which of course people aren't gonna like, but in Kansas City, you can hold someone for I think 24 hours, a certain amount of time, and you can hold them to gather evidence. So it takes a lot of time. So I actually sat down with the chief of police office after all this happened.
Photo op.
Well, I didn't take a picture. We didn't take a picture with him. There was no picture. We just sat down and talked. There were no cameras. That's a good one. But people, so he said, not the chief, because the chief's not as a woman, but the representative said, things don't happen like they do on CSI. It takes a lot longer. And so they didn't have enough evidence. I know he's laying on the ground, but you have the person who's speaking to the police is the shooter, because the other guy's in the hospital, and the shooter said he was trying to break into his house. That's what he told the police. They don't have anything to refute that until they talk to Ralph Yarl, which it wasn't always ideal while he was in the hospital in those first few hours, the first few days. They finally did get enough evidence when they did forensics and they saw that Ralph never crossed the plane of his house, that he shot him through the door. Then once they had that evidence, they passed it to the Clay County prosecutor, who then brought charges. But at that point, the shooter was hanging out at a Klan rally because he couldn't be found. And it wasn't until KCPD told the shooter's lawyer, if he doesn't turn himself in, we're going to charge you with aiding and abetting. Then all of a sudden, he turned himself in. So there are some cities where you can hold folk longer. Kansas City, they don't have that. But that goes back to something we've talked about before. There is no national standard for policing. Nothing. But we're talking about hip hop, 50 years of hip hop. So hip hop was birthed out of all this stuff we're talking about in the climate, the social climate of the 1970s. So you still had hopelessness, you had joblessness, you had lack of education, you had poverty, because the cities all across this country were ravaged from white flight. So you had this money in the city, and this money left the city to the suburbs and headed to the suburbs. And so now you had sort of this drop in the city. And it was out of that hip hop was birthed. And hip hop from the beginning has addressed some of these issues that we're talking about.
From the beginning, hip hop has been socially conscious. No matter what you hear in the media, no matter what you hear on the radio today, what bombards the radio and what's mainstream, hip hop started out socially conscious, almost from the very beginning into, I guess, mainstream America. Obviously, it started out first as just party and party music and having fun, but one of the first great rap songs of all time, The Message. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was just that. It was the message. And we talked about that song before on this show. But, I mean, that was one of the first records. I think it was one of the first rap songs to go gold. Maybe the first to go gold. Maybe the.
I think Curtis Blow went gold first.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But it was, I mean, the song, it's an iconic song. But there have been so many, like I said, because, I mean, hip-hop was birthed out of the social climate from the 70s. And then when Reaganomics hit, and Reagan was probably he was one of the worst presidents in U.S. history, especially for black Americans.
People love him. You know, when I say people, I don't mean black people.
Yeah, there might be a few, but you can't say all white people love him either. That's not true. His own son does it. It talks about him. His own son is an atheist. Although Ronald Reagan may have been an atheist, he may have used Christianity just to get the conservative vote.
I think a lot of people do that.
You think? I mean, Donald Trump, there's no way that dude. I mean, he says when he was asked, this is how hypocritical the conservative right is, because Donald Trump was asked before he was president, when he was running, he was asked about asking God for forgiveness, and he says he doesn't ask for forgiveness, like he's not done anything wrong. And for the evangelical Christians to let that slide, I mean, that shows their hypocrisy. Now, and I use the word hypocrisy lightly because, you know, most people are, if not all people are hypocrites to a certain degree. But just the blatant hypocrisy, that they would ignore that would not bother them whatsoever. But you've had hip hop address certain issues. One of the things that comes up constantly in hip hop is police brutality. And I mean, and the reason is because police brutality has been going on for so long.
Ever since the overseer.
It's nothing new. And the fact that, you know, non-black people are now recognizing that and getting on board it's a good thing. I'm glad to have allies and people out there protesting and saying something. But at the same time, man, this has been going on for a long time. How come, when Martin Luther King talked about it, people didn't get behind it? When Malcolm X, of course, I know why they were afraid of Malcolm X.
Tucker Carlson is talking about Malcolm X. You didn't see that? Well,
Tucker Carlson. Well, Tucker Carlson has been released to his new life. He's parted ways with Fox. That's the headlines. Another way to say that is he was fired.
Yeah, he'll be getting a job pretty soon.
I doubt he'll have. Well, he could. I was going to say I doubt he has the same reach because Fox is, the number one news station in the world.
He is one of the people that wants to know why black people don't complain about black on black crime. But anyway,
we complain. Let me just say this: we complain about black on black crime when we complain about the education system. When we complain about systemic racism, that's the same thing.
So yeah, back to the socially or songs that have addressed this. You could even say NWA. You can't. I mean, no question, they were addressing things that were going on in the neighborhood when they made the song "F the Police."
Absolutely.
I mean, I know a lot of people don't like that and it's harsh and whatever, but if you listen to what they say during those verses, they were really saying some things that were right on point that many black men could understand and relate to. So I mean, you have people from NWA addressing these issues, to KRS-One, who addressed the issues a lot. Public Enemy, the list goes on and on. Today, Nas, you have Kendrick Lamar.
Everybody. Well, we're going to get to the songs.
Yeah, I mean, we get to the songs. That's why I'm just naming people who are rappers who have always talked about this in the music. So, they can't say that we don't talk about black on black crime. We don't complain about that because almost from the inception of hip hop, rappers have been speaking about this, speaking about their neighborhoods, speaking about their communities, what needs to happen, what's going on, and how to make things better. So these are things that have always been addressed. It's getting the possession of guns, buying guns that needs to be addressed first, addressed more.
Yeah, that's
one of the most asked questions.
The problem is, so here's what we have in this country. Although previous national elections have shown us that the majority of the country is somewhere to the left, leaning toward the left. I mean, you see that because, George Bush didn't get the popular vote. Obama did get the popular vote. Donald Trump did not win the popular vote. And Joe Biden won the popular vote. The problem is you have states like Missouri, Texas, and others where the legislature, they seem to want to make it easier for guns. I mean, some states, teachers can take guns into the classroom, man. Come on. How many times somebody got in trouble if a teacher had a gat? It could have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a couple of fights between some teachers that were made national news. But I mean, or even worse. I mean, a teacher leaves a gun on the desk and has to leave the room and leave the gun in the desk. Then what?
Or something goes down, the teacher pulls out a gun, not really an expert at it. That's not their thing, and they shoot some students, trying to save students. I mean,
guns in school is ridiculous. When in the town in Texas, when you had all those trained law enforcement officers just standing outside. Yeah. So I mean, they were trained. So you think a teacher is going to run into danger and try to be a hero when you have paid, trained officials who are just sitting out there while children are being murdered. So some of these people, I don't think they think things all the way through. I just don't think they think it through.
The simple solution. Here's one solution: just put metal detectors in every school. And I've heard that. So here in one of the suburbs in Kansas City, Lee Summit, parents are saying they don't want their kids to feel like they're going into this place that's been regulated and governed. It has a bad optics. And my thing is I'd rather have bad optics than someone with a gun walking around the school.
They have bad optics, but in the least summer school districts, don't they have training? Don't the kids have to do drills for active shooters?
Yeah, they do have those.
Exactly. So that is hypocritical. Do you understand? They don't mind their kids doing drills for active shooters, but they don't want metal detectors. One could eliminate the other.
Yeah. At least if there were guns on property, they'd all be outside. Because in most schools, you can't get in. I mean, you just can't walk into a school now. You have to be let in. So if they had metal detectors, I mean, at least in the building, that's a start, man.
That's a start.
That's a start.
Yeah, that would keep the guns out of the building.
But yeah, to have teachers. And going back, something we mentioned about before, Gangstar, Tons of Guns.
Yeah, that's
the song was way before its time, because we're talking about mid-'90s. Gangstar had a song called Tons of Guns, where they're just talking about the proliferation of guns on our street and how everybody has one.
And how
that was in the 90s.
To get it. And
now it is even easier to get guns anywhere, but in states like Missouri and Texas, where they hand them out once you're born.
And see, you can go to a gun show in Missouri. I can go to a gun show, take a gun, and then if I see somebody that wants to buy a gun, I can say, just give me $300 and give them that gun, and they give me that $300. And that's it. You can do that at a gun show in Missouri. That's how easy it is. And then what's the guy, Jordan Klepper, he was going around at a gun show and asking guys, so are you going to sell a gun to a guy that looks like a maniac? No, I'll look him up and down. This is what these people are saying.
Look him up and down.
I'll look him up and down and tell if he looks crazy, I'm not going to sell him the gun.
In other words, if he's black, if he's a person of color,
yeah,
no,
that's crazy. But yeah, so it is easy to get guns in Missouri.
You can go to any gun store and they do a quick background check, and then you pass that, you're licensed to carry a gun in Missouri. No training is needed. You are licensed. And now, apparently, you can take it into a church or get on a city bus. It seems like a city bus.
I don't know if you can get on a city bus.
In Missouri, they voted you can carry guns on buses.
On city buses?
What other
when you
bus?
said that, I thought you meant school buses.
No.
You said that like that's stupid.
Kids?
Okay.
You're talking about
the bus
kids.
Driver.
Oh, the bus driver. Yeah.
I mean, you talking about kids? Kids, guns in schools. Kids.
Yeah,
man.
but the state legislature isn't saying that you can have it.
We're arguing about two crazy things. What you're saying is crazy, and what I'm saying is crazy. We're arguing about that.
Yeah.
You're saying it's crazy to have guns on school buses. I'm saying it's crazy to have guns in schools. It's crazy to have guns in church. Anyway, this is where we live. We had to do something about these guns.
I'm afraid to get on a bus now, man.
Yeah,
well, that seems like the worst place.
I mean,
one of the worst places.
I mean, there's nothing you can do.
No.
I mean, everybody in there is dead, as long as he has enough bullets. And I mean, of course, you can get the guns you can get today. You have plenty of bullets. They don't run out. So I mean, this is, I don't know what can be done. When the Democrats were in power, they didn't do anything about gun laws. They didn't do anything. So they can't say anything now. I don't know. It's America. This is America.
Yeah, that's the way it is. But thankfully, we have had a voice from the voiceless, and that is hip hop, because songs addressing some of those important issues. So today we thought we'd do top 5 socially conscious songs, and like many of our lists, it's impossible to narrow down because there are so many.
We'll have at least dozens that we'll think of later that should have been on this list.
Yes. So if we don't say the song you think should be on there, please put it in the comment section, because I know there are a bunch of songs that we have to lift up. So Who's going first?
I'll go first. So I'm gonna have, because there's so many, I had to double it up.
Come on, man.
So number 5, I have Tons of Guns, Gangstar. We mentioned it early. The late Guru, the MC, talked about, tons of guns, all the guns on the streets and how easy it is to get these guns. And they made another song, well, we won't talk about that because we can talk about all the songs they've done. But anyway, Tons of Guns. And then tied with number 5, I had Sound of the Police, KRS-One, where he talks about the violence, police violence against African Americans, all the way back from overseer to officer. And he makes that connection in the song, how an overseer is, or an officer is a modern day overseer today. So, those two are number 5, Tons of Guns, Gangstar, Sound of the Police, KRS-One. Number 4, Get by Talib Kweli, socially conscious song, talking about the struggle of African Americans, what we've been through, what we're going through, how to get by during those tough times, featuring Mary J. Blige. Along with that, number 4, I have This Is America, Donald Glover.
No, Mary J. Blige didn't do Get By. I Try. Mary J. Blige did I Try with Talib Kweli.
Oh, it was, okay. But anyway, Talib Kweli, Get By. And then we have Donald Glover, This Is America, which was recent, one of the recent songs where he's just talking about violence in America, things that are going on in America to black men, to black people, the struggle of black people. Number 3, Donald Glover and Talib Kweli, Get By. Our number 4, Get By, Talib Kweli. Number 3, and also Donald Glover, This Is America. Number 3, I have Self-Destruction. So this was a song by a bunch of East Coast rappers. There was a bunch of gun violence, black on black crime. So this is a song addressing black on black crime, and hence the title, Self-Destruction. You're headed for self-destruction, spearheaded by KRS-One, Boogie Down Productions. But they got all the great rappers, the top rappers in New York at that time, to make this song. And then the West Coast came out with their version, We're All in the Same Gang, which had most of the top West Coast rappers at that time. So I have those two at number 3. We're All in the Same Gang by West Coast rappers, and Self-Destruction by the East Coast rappers. Both are talking about black on black crime. So number 2, I have Fight the Power, KRS-One. Fight the Power, Public Enemy, which is talking about fighting the establishment. One of the great lines in hip hop history, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant to me. Straight out racist. The sucker was simple and plain. MF, him and John Wayne.
John Wayne too.
Yeah, especially John Wayne. Elvis, he kind of recanted on Elvis throughout the years because Elvis actually did give props to black musicians where he got it from. But anyway, those Fight the Power, and one of the great music videos, Spike Lee directed it, but one of the all-time great hip-hop songs, talking about the struggle of black people. Number 1, of course, is not of course, but I would have to say, of course. The Message, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, one of the first song with the message, and it kind of talked about everything, the whole spectrum, drugs, mental illness, crime, everything, police, brutality. At the end of the video, I think they even end up getting arrested. The Message, Grandmaster Flash, Furious Five, Melly Mel with the great lyrical content. So that's my top 5.
All right, mine's somewhat similar. I have, and I just narrowed it down to 1 on each slot. It was tough. But number 5, I have Sound of the Police, KRS-One. That classic thing where he, compares the overseer to the officer is classic. Genius. Number 4, I'm have Kendrick Lamar, We Gonna Be All Right. Kendrick Lamar, one of those socially conscious rappers with lyrics. And that's probably, I think, in terms of socially conscious, that was maybe his biggest hit. Number 3, I'm going back to Tupac, where he had a song called Changes.
Yeah, I was about to put that on there.
Where he's talking about all the changes that are needed in our society and talking about what black people need to change, not just systematic things that need to be changed, but what we need to change with ourselves. And so that Tupac song, Changes, is classic. The next 2 are similar to what you had. Fight the Power, number 2, Public Enemy. It doesn't get much stronger than that. And The Message, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 has to be number 1 socially conscious songs. I don't see how you could have anything other than the Message. But I got some honorable mentions. Some things that some people may not go. So you mentioned Talib Kweli, Get By.
Yeah.
I have that Mathematics by Mos Def.
Okay.
I have The Corner by Common.
Yeah.
Cop Shot the Kid by Nas.
Okay.
Immortal Technique, he has a song called Civil War with Killer Mike, Brother Ali, and Chuck D. Now that's close to that top 5.
Yeah.
Civil War. And then there's a song by Killer Mike called Reagan, where he talks about Reaganomics and all the damage that did to the black community. And he, in one point of the song, he says, I'm glad, he said, I'm glad the 3 words when it comes to Ronald Reagan, glad he's dead, which is rough. But
yeah, he wasn't the only rapper that said that.
I mean,
that was Karis when he said, I'm glad Nixon died.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm not mad at Killer Mike for saying that, simply because think of all the lives that were lost and families that were destroyed because of Ronald Reagan's war on drugs, where he was actually funding through the CIA or funneling drugs to the black community, and then he's going to declare war on it. That's why I say he's the worst president in recent history for black folk. Maybe, he's probably not worst of all time. It's hard to beat Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
But Ronald Reagan was a straight up racist. He did a lot of harm to the black community.
Yes, he did.
What honorable mentions you got? You got any?
Let me see. I guess I'm just freestyling with the honorable mentions. I mentioned I think Ice Cube.
Ice Cube Death Certificate album.
Yeah,
that whole album.
You could say that whole Death Certificate album was a socially conscious record production. And then the Ghetto Boys have done made a few songs. I think they have a song. It's called America. I think that's the name of it. Where that is real socially conscious. Tupac has made several. Keep your head up. Just uplifting women. Keep your head up. Holla if you hear me. I know that's kind of revolutionary. It's kind of hard. Public Enemy has. You can go down their catalog to talk about music that they've done. So those are just to name a few that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'd say some songs Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah.
As well. So he's been a socially conscious rapper, and he said some things that got him that black folk were upset because he had some problems with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Called him a terrorist, but he calls every president, and I see exactly what he was talking about. If you're not familiar with Lupe Fiasco, or he's a rapper from Chicago, he said President Obama was a terrorist, but I can see how you could really make that argument with any U.S. president.
Yeah.
From the argument that he was making. You could call any U.S. president a terrorist because of the body count around the world. But that's a show for another time, because we talk about why America always gets involved. We have to get involved because we've been involved in the past. And so the wrong person, wrong group gets in power in a country, then that means we got another enemy. Yeah. But it's of our own doing. It is of our own doing. But that, like I said, that's
a few more groups. Brand Nubian. Their first album, you could say pretty much. Common has done a lot. of songs. His last 2 albums have been uplifting the black community, black America. But yeah, those are just the few.
Let us know what socially conscious songs we missed. We named songs. We did the top 5 songs. We named some artists who are about that life. But what socially conscious songs did we miss? What speaks to you? And what is a powerful, powerful message? Maybe there's some stuff I haven't heard, and I'd like to get my revolutionary mixtape going. Yeah. So check us out. Most places you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. We have a lot more shows coming, some good ideas with some guests, talking about a lot more hip hop. So stay tuned.
Peace.
I'm of the modest, here I am. I come, that's where I'm from. I say I'm going.